Hey guys, it's RodimusPrimal. I am back with another video, and today I want to give you guys my review for the second part of season 3 for Transformers Cyberverse. I had already done the first part, which was the battle for Cybertron, and now this is the following arc, which is the biggest section of season 3, and it has to do with the whole Quintesson arc. Of course, I've got a lot to talk about, so sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's transform and roll out. Consider supporting the channel on Patreon, becoming a channel member, or purchasing some merch on my Teespring store today. Okay, so as you guys already know, I had done my first part of the review, and I had already watched Siege before I finished watching the second half of, or the second portion of season 3 for Cyberverse. And it's really interesting to have watched Siege and then watch this section of Cyberverse, because it's like literally watching two completely different Transformers cartoons. It is watching two different Transformers cartoons, and it's very different in tone, so it's kind of like getting back into that groove, because Siege was a very dark 6 episodes, and this is very bright, and yet at the same time has a pretty dark, twisted take on the Quintessons, which I'll get into my negatives about the show, but I want to talk about the overall arching plot, what ends up happening, and then I'll give you kind of guys my thoughts about, everything that went on. Of course, this is going to be spoiler heavy, so, I'm not going to, hold back anything that actually happened. The episodes are only 10 minutes long, and the entire arc so far is on YouTube right now, so you can watch it. So the arc starts off following the battle for Cybertron, and it's an undetermined amount of time afterward. The only thing that we end up knowing is that the Quintessons have taken over Cybertron, and Hot Rod and Clobber are trying to connect by hacking into a system to try and connect to the other Autobots and Decepticons who are mindlessly watching a looped parade. And so it's almost as if the parade ends up like programming them to just like sit there and watch. And, Hot Rod tries frantically to try to get different Autobots. He tries to get Bumblebee. He tries to get Optimus to come out of this loop that they're in. And he keeps trying and trying and trying, and he can't. And he says, all you have to do is transform. And I wonder if that was intentional, instead of doing the red pill and the blue pill, and that's probably because of modern thoughts and whatever. And the thing is that the way that they handled the Quintessons is they ended up making them look more like the Matrix, the Keanu Reeves, movies. And it's kind of funny that they actually decided to use the Matrix as the way that the Quintessons are taking over Cybertron, because, first of all, the Matrix itself, the actual name, the Matrix, was, obviously has to do with the Matrix of leadership, but because of the Keanu Reeves films, they actually renamed the Matrix Cube as the Allspark in the in the Michael Bay films, and that's where the whole idea behind the Allspark came from, is that they basically changed those plot points, and now they end up utilizing the Matrix films for the Quintessons here in Cyberverse. And I thought that was a really neat and interesting way to bring them about. It's a very dark and gloomy Cybertron, and Hot Rod is in all black. We end up finding out that Hot Rod is in all black because after his battle with Drift, when the Quintessons took over, somehow Hot Rod survived, and he crawled his way to the surface, and he was in all black. And he looks actually really cool. That I actually do dig Hot Rod in this dark color scheme, specifically for this storyline. I would have preferred if he stayed in red. Maybe he might, after this arc, I don't know. But I ended up watching all the way up until the end of the universe, part 4. But they end up freeing Dead End, and we get to see Dead End's character. I actually really like him because he's very much like his G1 counterpart, is that he is pessimistic. He's you know, he's like, I don't want to watch this parade anymore. I'd rather be doing this. Or, you know, I don't want to go out there and get myself caught. I'd rather just sit here. And, you know, it's because Dead End himself, the original G1 character, was a pessimist. He was always, you know, face it, we're doomed. Like, that's just basically his, like, mindset, his, like, outlook on life. And they pretty much nailed it here with this character. They actually gave him a lot of story with it, because Clobber, I really like Clobber because she's she's not Lugnut. That's what I like about her, is that, okay, she looks like Lugnut, but they gave her enough of her own personality and her own, you know, you tell her to do something and she completely screws up, but ends up actually helping you somehow in the end. And that's how much I really dug her character. And Hot Rod's arc throughout this whole you know, the whole Quintesson arc, what I liked about it was that Hot Rod, he actually grows to be a almost Rodimus Prime. I would have loved to have, I really, really would love to see Rodimus Prime lead the Autobots into battle, you know, as the leader of the Autobots again. And the showrunners apparently have stated that they wanted to do something similar with Hot Rod, but they knew they just can't eliminate Optimus Prime. And I'm like, you could have done something, you know, to make him a Prime, because that's what I want to see. I want to see him leading the Autobots. I want to see him opening the Matrix. But he does go through this whole story arc where he begins to realize, he's like, I'm not the leader. We need Optimus. You know, I can't do this on my own. And I'm like, man, this is like, they got the character. They completely got the character. In fact, Hot Rod actually tries to break into the loop again to try and save Optimus, when he realizes, he's like, I keep on trying to save everyone and I can't. And he tries and tries and tries to get Optimus to come out. And he's like, I can't do this on my own. And he realizes he can't. And I thought that was a really cool way about trying to make his character grow, you know, and to make him almost Rodimus, you know, to show that, like, that diamond in the rough character that he is. Or he's like, I can't do this, but if he keeps persevering, he'll eventually show that he really is worthy to be a leader. And they also end up freeing Whirl and Soundwave. And with Soundwave, it's cool because, you know, they end up breaking him off incorrectly. And when they do, he starts going through this glitch. So he's like, goes back into the parade, and then, like, they hit him once, and then he's like, he comes back. And in a throwaway line, and I was kind of annoyed about this, because, you know, I would have liked to have seen Hound, you know, actually in the show, is that Hound apparently was broken free, and he ended up actually dying because of his disconnection. And so Soundwave starts to, like, he doesn't really show the emotion that he's, like, worried about it, but they even, like, make mention of it, and it's kind of like, okay, well, Hound is just basically a throwaway character in this show. Kind of stinks, you know. But Soundwave himself I'm also glad that you get to see a lot more of his characterization in this show, because you really didn't get to see it much in season 1 and season 2, and here you now get to see a lot more of Soundwave. And I really dug that. What I think the reason why they chose to, you know, have Soundwave disconnected, one of the reasons possibly could be because they didn't decide on an alt mode for him. You know, they didn't make him a tape player, yet he still has, like, all the cassette parts on his chest. But then he has, like, the evergreen, like, you know, the truck wheels and stuff. So he doesn't transform in this show ever. So the fact that he never transformed is reason enough that he got disconnected improperly. So it's kind of like a catch on both of those, you know, story elements. But I do like Soundwave. Like, you get to see how he met Laserbeak, and how Laserbeak is used in this show is really creatively. I like the fact that Soundwave interrogates, you know, one of the Quintessons to try and, you know, free the others. Now, when you actually end up meeting the Quintessons themselves, you find out that the Quintessons are controlling the planet because they are using the planet to create the Judge, because they are multi-universe beings. at least according to Cyberverse continuity, is that these versions of the Quintessons go from universe to universe, and they're basically Unicron. They're, in a way, they are the agents of Unicron, and they come to the planet. They create a judge to judge the universe, and then once that judge deems it guilty, they wipe out that universe. And the reason why is because there are too many universes, which is, I kind of find it ironic that they actually, some of the lines that they used in the show is almost meta in a way, because to say that there are too many universes, it's kind of true of Transformers. I just got done watching Siege, and now here I am finally finishing the second portion of season 3 of Cyberverse. And, it just goes to show you there are one too many Transformers universes. So what basically Cyberverse is saying here is, let's wipe them all out. Let's just eliminate them all, right? So it's very meta in that respect. And in that same conversation, Hot Rod actually says to the Quintesson judge, he's like, I told Bumblebee to go all red, but then he said I'd look like Cliffjumper, and I was like, ha, 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 ha. But it kind of goes to, what it says to me is that either that the showrunners are aware that Bumblebee being repainted red is a thing within the fandom, or maybe they're watching my videos. So who knows? The other thing is the scientist. Now, the scientist still has a similar design where it's basically like a big giant brain, but the scientist has a collection of sound waves. Like there are a multitude of, there's a bunch of different colors. There's a purple one, much like the Marvel comics. There is a white sound wave, like the shattered glass one. There's a whole bunch of different color sound waves. He's like, oh, I don't have a blue one. And in another meta way about the Quintessons, the Quintesson actually says, I keep saying I have no more room, but I can't stop. It's like he can't stop collecting them. And I was like, wow, he has a whole collection of sound waves. And I'm like, man, that's kind of meta in a way, because it's speaking to Transformers fans, because especially fans like myself who have been around for so long, and here I end up having 4 or 5 different versions of this character or that character. I'm having on my desk, I have Earthrise Cliffjumper and G1 Cliffjumper, and I have the Generations hoist and the Earthrise toys. So it's you end up having so many different toys on your desk, and it's you have so many in your collection. And it's what is one more, right? And it's very meta in that way. And I'm like, oh man, it's the Quintessons themselves are literally speaking to fans. They're acknowledging all the different weird things that fans have to go through as Transformers fans and as collectors. And as we keep on collecting different toys, how many of them that we do have, we have so many of them. You open up a closet door and you end up having 50 different versions of Optimus Prime. And I do want to talk about the negative of how they pronounced Quintesson, because this is something with the show that I have said since the beginning, is I don't like how they pronounce certain characters' names, and I don't like how they pronounce certain things, like saying Teletron 1 instead of Teletran 1. Come on. You guys have a voice director for a reason. The voice director should be able to go in there and go, no, I need you to go back and say Teletran 1. That has to be pronounced properly. And they decided to use Simon Furman's way of pronouncing Quintesson, and by saying Quintesson. It's like nails on a chalkboard, man. It's very much the other thing I've said this before in other videos, characters like Slug, or it's supposed to be Slag, right? Well, I mean, the Dinobots are not in the show except for Grimlock, but the Dinobot Slag is called Slug now, and I hate that. It's like nails on a chalkboard, because when it's a prominent character especially if you really like the character, you don't like how that character is pronounced incorrectly, or if it's an important part of the Transformers lore, you want to make sure that that's pronounced correctly. Because I mispronounce things quite a bit sometimes too, and you guys are quick to get on me. So I absolutely should not only be hard on myself, but I should also be hard, you know, on some of the voice direction when it comes down to pronouncing names correctly. Like I've said transector instead of transtector, because it's kind of hard to say, like in my Jinrai video. Going back to the actual storyline itself, Soundwave says, like, Soundwave and Hot Rod have like they kind of clash in their ways about leadership. And I mean, even Soundwave says to Hot Rod, "You are no Optimus Prime." And I was like, well, that's the callback to Transformers Prime, but that's also a callback to Hot Rod's character and the fact that, like, you know, here he is, he's trying to like lead the, you know, all of the Cybertronians, Autobots, and Decepticons against the Quintesson threat. And it's like he realizes, like, no, I really am. I know I'm not Optimus Prime, but I know what I have to do is going to be different to free everybody. And of course, Perceptor makes a big role in this show. And, you know, Perceptor being blind, which I didn't like that in the battle for Cybertron, that he ended up losing his eyes, but now he ends up keeping his broken eyes. He gets his arm ripped off by Skullcruncher of all things, like a really big giant Skullcruncher that doesn't transform, and he ends up repairing his arm, but he doesn't repair his eyes. I guess maybe he likes being blind, I don't know. And, Mac Adam, end up finding out that he is the last citizen of Iaconus, which is the Titan, was what Iacon was built upon. And so they have to free Windblade. But then when they end up finally freeing all the Autobots and Decepticons, it turns out that Starscream is the judge of this universe. That was a unique and weird twist. You end up seeing like the faces of the different, judges. Like there's a creature that says, "Oh, we should eat them." And that face in particular reminds me of the alien creature in Hoist Goes to Hollywood. And the other creature is it says we should, I think it was one was we should probe them, we should eat them. But that was one of the faces that was recognizable. But Starscream in particular, he has his wings as his backdrop. It's like, it's so weird, like to see like the wings of Starscream, then his head on a spinning Quintesson. But then the whole end of the universe arc happens. And with the end of the universe arc, it starts with Cup. First of all, I gotta say this about Cup. Cup was freaking awesome. I'm so glad to have seen Cup, come back to tell old war stories. And he tells it like a military drill. And I think that was kind of like they were trying to mix some of the IDW elements when he was like, the whole Sins of the Wreckers thing. But then they were mixing and telling the old war stories, which is very much his G1 counterpart. And I'm also glad that they brought him in, because all the other old characters that they've had kind of shouldn't have been the older characters. It should have always been Cup telling the old war stories, and here he's back doing so. And I thought that was really cool that they go back and forth between him telling the story and the actual story itself. And I thought that was really, really cool. But they end up waking up Iaconus, and he's massive. Like, he is a massive Titan. He is just like, he is awesome looking. And they end up like the Starscream judge ends up actually awakening Croatan under the Quintesson control, and they have this brawl. And it is one of the most awesome things. I honestly think the battle between Croatan and Iaconus is like makeup for the fact that the Prime Wars trilogy did not have two Titans facing off in an epic way, because I mean the Trypticon and Metroplex fight in that were just, and the Fortress Maximus fight were just not that good. And here, this, like, the Iaconus, like when they're fighting, they're like kicking up buildings and just like they're swinging at each other. It was so cool. It was like a really awesome battle. And so Megatron actually escapes to another universe, and he ends up coming back aboard Astro Train. And he's like, his helmet is black, much like his G1 Marvel Comics counterpart. And he and Optimus Prime both have a matrix of leadership, which I'm guessing this is probably going to be something to do with the next arc of the story. But they end up using their matrix of leadership to end up wiping out Starscream and closing the porthole where the anti-universe, or I think it was like Dark Universe or whatever, would have wiped out all of the Cyberverse universe, they end up saving the day. And when the war is finally over, Megatron says to Optimus, I'm going to go with my Decepticons on one side of the planet, and you're going to go on your side of the planet, and if you come on my side, there'll be consequences. And that's pretty much where they end the entire, Quintesson arc. The Quintessons are defeated, and the Autobots and Decepticons, their war is over, and they have Cybertron back, and they end up living on two separate ends of the world. And I didn't talk about Mac Adam. Mac Adam was really, really, really instrumental throughout this entire arc because, since he was the last citizen of Iaconis, he ends up giving the, Windblade be able to awaken Iaconis. But when he ends up saving all of the Cybertronians during the End of the Universe arc, he ends up getting killed. And but he knew his end was coming, and every time that he says something, it's like something in the future. And I'm wondering if there's going to be another thing with him that might be a little bit more important, because I really dug his character, and they made him a lot more important this time around, where he was just basically like a side character in season 1, and I don't think he even was in season 2, or they might have just mentioned him in season 2. They made him like a lot more important here in season 3. And I thought that was really, really cool. Now, the entire arc in and of itself, I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was a great story arc. I think it was probably one of the strongest Transformers stories that we've seen in recent history. The Bumblebee movie was good. Siege was good, but it was dark. The Bumblebee movie was good, but it was like the middle was like too much humans. Cyberverse and Siege both don't have humans, but here Cyberverse is a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun in the characters and in the stories, and how they were trying to get things taken care of. The loop itself was like a video game, where if you end up dying, you end up going back to the beginning, and you keep going back to that same beginning, like, I'm going to make it this time, or I'm going to do a speed run this time. Like, that was like kind of cool that they did that. But I enjoyed the heck out of this arc with Cyberverse, and I'm hoping that the third arc is just as good as this middle arc of Cyberverse, but I'm not sure. And from what I've been told, is that the final arc, it doesn't have the same strength as this middle arc had, and it seems like they really pulled out all the stops to make this an enjoyable series. And especially after coming off of Siege, it was like, you end up with like Siege was so dark, and this was a lot of fun, and it's like contrast and compare. And like I said, I enjoyed the heck out of this season of Cyberverse. I wish that Hot Rod had become Rodimus Prime, and there's a lot of story elements that, like, there was just too much to talk about. But like I said, I dug it. So, but I want to know what you guys think. What did you think of the second arc of Cyberverse? Have you seen it yet, or do you still need to watch it? And have you seen Siege yet? And can you contrast and compare the two of them? I want to know what you guys think. Of course, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video and subscribe. Check out my other videos as well. I have a lot more coming down the pipeline. And as always, guys, until next time, till all are one.